What would you do if your child pointed to a homeless stranger and whispered, "Dad, that's Mom"? That's exactly what happened to Grant Whitaker on an ordinary afternoon in downtown Austin, until everything he thought he buried with his late wife came crashing back in the form of a woman with the exact same face. Was it a ghost, a scam, or something far more unbelievable? As Grant digs deeper, secret surface twins, separated at birth, a hidden adoption, and a conspiracy that could destroy not just his company, but his family's peace forever. But one thing is certain, the woman he brought in from the streets wasn't just a shadow of the past. She might be the future. Stay with us, because what they uncover next will shatter everything and build something even more beautiful. Have you ever thought you saw a ghost? In broad daylight, the Texas sun was scorching through the windshield as Grant Whitaker navigated his SUV down a bustling street in downtown Austin. His dark sunglasses hid the heaviness beneath his eyes, years of grief he never truly escaped. In the back seat, 8-year-old Noah tapped away on his tablet, humming a song his mom used to sing. But then mid-note, he stopped. Silence. His fingers froze. His breath caught. "Dad," he said, voice trembling. "That woman, she looks just like Mom." Grant barely registered the words. "What did you say, buddy?" "That lady by the wall," Noah pointed. "She looks exactly like Mom." Grant pulled off his sunglasses and turned toward where Noah pointed, a crumbling alley wall, covered in graffiti, where a few unhoused people sat beneath the shadow of a broken billboard. And then he saw her. There, slouched on a pile of torn blankets, was a woman, wild hair tangled and matted, barefoot on the blistering pavement, her skin sun-scorched and her clothes ripped and caked with dust. But it wasn't any of that made Grant's stomach twist. It was her face. He knew that face. Not resembled, not reminded him of. It was Caroline, his late wife, the woman he'd buried 2 years ago after cancer devoured her life in just a matter of months. Grant slammed on the brakes. Horns screamed behind him, but he didn't care. His heartbeat was in his throat. He lowered the window and leaned forward, eyes locked. No, it couldn't be. It shouldn't be. Caroline was gone. He held her hand until her last breath picked out her casket, scattered her ashes. It had to be some impossible look-alike. But her eyes, those eyes, he knew them better than he knew his own. Without a word, Grant threw the car into park and stepped out. The honking continued, drivers cursing him, but everything else disappeared. He crossed the street, trembling, drawn toward her by something primal: fear, grief, hope, madness. The woman flinched as he approached. She clutched a filthy blanket tighter to her chest and lowered her gaze. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Grant asked, voice cracking. She didn't respond, just nodded faintly and looked away. Her lips were cracked. Her eyes were bloodshot, but they were Caroline's eyes. Grant crouched down, careful not to startle her. "Do you know me?" No answer. Her stare was hollow, haunted. Noah's voice cut through the tension. "Dad, is it?" Her Grant stood frozen. He didn't know what to say. Before he could answer, the woman grabbed a plastic bag, wrapped her blanket around her shoulders, and walked away barefoot, as if the burning concrete meant nothing. She vanished into the moving crowd, one ghost among many. Back in the car, Grant said nothing. "You told me Mom was in heaven," Noah whispered. "She is," Grant replied, but his voice betrayed him. He wasn't sure anymore. That night, Grant didn't sleep. He paced the hallways, stared out windows, made coffee, and left it untouched. He checked on Noah 3 times just to make sure he was still safe, still real. Caroline haunted him in photographs, but now she haunted him on the street. The next morning, Grant returned to the alley, but she was gone. He asked food vendors and delivery guys if they'd seen a woman who looked like someone lost. Most just shrugged. One elderly taco vendor finally said, "There's a lady like that. Doesn't talk much. Sometimes cries. Sleeps right there under the overpass. But nobody knows her name. Is she mentally ill?" The man shook his head. "No, son. Not crazy. Just lost." That word "lost" echoed inside Grant's head for the next 2 days. He kept going back until finally, on the 3rd night, he saw her again. Same spot, same posture, different weather. She was eating cold beans out of a can, sipping water from a crumpled bottle. He approached slowly. "Hi," he said. I don't want to scare you. I brought some food. She didn't look at him, just nodded, took the food, ate it in silence. What's your name? Lena, she whispered after a long pause. The name sent a chill down his spine. It wasn't Caroline, but the voice. The voice. Do you remember me? He asked. She shrugged. I don't know. Her voice was dry like a wind blowing through an abandoned house. Grant didn't push. He just sat next to her quietly, like someone waiting for the pieces of a puzzle to fall into place. That night, as he watched her eat and drift into silence, one terrible thought rooted in his mind. What if everything I believed about Caroline was a lie? What if this isn't coincidence, but blood? Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. Have you ever experienced something that made you question your reality? If someone you lost came back, would you chase the truth no matter what it cost? What would you have done in Grant's place, walked away, or followed her into the unknown? Let us know in the comments, and stay with us because what happens next will shock you to the core. Grant spent the next 48 hours pretending to live two lives at once. By day, he was the polished CEO of Whitaker Renewable Solutions, shaking hands with investors who cared more about dividends than people. By night, he returned to the crumbling underpass on East 6th Street, slipping a fresh meal and a thermos of coffee to Lena Hartley, the woman who wore his late wife's face like an unfinished ghost story. On the third night, the temperature dropped hard. Lena's blanket was soaked through from a burst water pipe overhead, her shoulders shaking beneath the filthy cotton. Grant didn't think he acted. He opened the passenger door of his SUV and said, "Please, just for tonight. You'll freeze out here." Lena stared at the seatbelt buckle as though it might bite her. "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone once saved me when I was lost," he lied. No one had saved him, but he prayed she would believe it. She climbed in silent. The heater blasted, steam rose off her wet hair. Noah was asleep at Grant's sister's house, his backpack packed for a weekend sleepover that Grant hadn't explained. He checked them into a modest hotel near Lady Bird Lake, nothing flashy enough to spook her, then handed Lena a shopping bag of clean sweatpants, a t-shirt, toothbrush, and soap. Inside the room, she shuffled into the bathroom, the door clicking shut. Grant paced the carpet. Logic screamed that he should call social services, maybe the police. But logic had died the moment he saw Caroline's eyes flicker behind Lena's. When the shower finally cut off and the door opened, Lena emerged in the fresh clothes, hair dripping down her back. For the first time, Grant saw the small crescent-shaped scar at her hairline, identical to the one Caroline earned, falling off a swing at 10. He swallowed hard. Hungry? She nodded. He ordered grilled cheese and tomato soup from room service. They ate at the tiny desk under fluorescent light. Lena chewed slowly, wary but ravenous. "Do you remember anything about your family?" he asked. "Nothing clear." "Just a woman singing," she whispered, fingers tightening around the spoon. "And green walls. Everything else is a fog." Grant slid a cotton swab from a sealed envelope across the table. "May I?" Lena's gaze sharpened. "That's a DNA kit. I need to know who you are," he said, voice cracking. "Who we are." She hesitated, then opened her mouth like a child at the doctor's office. He swabbed the inside of her cheek, sealed the vial, labeled it only Whitaker, Hartley. FedEx would have it at the lab by sunrise. The next morning, Noah bounded into the hotel room clutching a dinosaur figurine. His chatter died when he saw Lena. The woman from the street now smelled like citrus soap and wore fuzzy pink socks that were clearly hotel issue. "Hi, Noah," she said as though she'd practiced the name all night. Noah's eyes welled. "You sound like my mom." Lena flinched, then knelt. "I'm not your mom, kiddo. But I'm glad to meet you." She held out the dinosaur. Noah dropped it into her hand, transfixed. Across town, Vanessa Aldridge adjusted her crimson lipstick and replayed security footage of Grant ushering a ragged stranger through the corporate lobby 2 days earlier. She zoomed in on Lena's face, icy curiosity twisting into outrage. Caroline's double, she printed a screenshot, slipped it into a manila folder, and called her most gossip-hungry board member. "Watch Whitaker," she purred. "He's fraternizing with a woman who walked in off the street. He's vulnerable. This could tank the upcoming French partnership. And if Grant fell, Vanessa would be waiting to sweep up the shares." That evening, Grant brought Lena and Noah to a quiet diner on South Congress. Fairy lights twinkled over picnic benches. A country trio strummed slow ballads. Noah devoured pancakes for dinner, while Lena traced a fingertip along the condensation of her iced tea, absorbing the sound of laughter she hadn't heard in years. Grant asked gentle questions. Lena answered in fragments, years on the road shelters, that lost her paperwork, a man with a red baseball cap who yelled more than he talked. Every detail struck Grant like debris in a storm, yet none explained the impossible symmetry of her face. Across the street, a telephoto lens clicked. Vanessa's private photographer captured the tableau widower-child mysterious woman. The flash was invisible, the damage already done. 3 days later, Jasmine Pierce, investigative journalist for the Capitol Ledger, called Grant's cell. Results are back. We need to talk privately. Grant met her at a riverside pier just after dusk. Jasmine handed him an envelope. The lab seal was intact. He tore it open beneath the hazy glow of a street lamp. Probability of full sibling relationship, 99.7%. His knees buckled. Jasmine steadied him. Grant, Lena isn't Caroline, she said softly, but she's her identical twin. The orphanage records you requested Willow Creek home show a baby girl listed as unnamed twin B, transferred without consent. Thunder rolled over the water as though the sky itself gasped. I have one more thing, Jasmine added, passing him a second folder, this one stamped with the Whitaker Company logo. Inside, Vanessa's leaked photos of Lena entering the HQ lobby. A draft story accusing Grant of harboring a con artist to divert company funds. Grant's grief ignited into fury. He dialed Vanessa's number, straight to voicemail. Coward, he thought. He sped back to the hotel, adrenaline clawing at his chest. Upstairs, Noah was asleep, his small arm draped over Lena's waist on the sofa bed. They looked like a family forged by fate and scars. Grant woke Lena, gently pressing the DNA report into her shaking hands. She read it once, twice, then pressed it to her heart, tears splashing onto the page. Caroline. I had a sister, she breathed. Grant nodded, voice ragged. You still have a family. Sirens wailed outside, an ambulance rushing somewhere else, but in that tiny room, time stopped. Grant didn't care about board votes or gossip or stock prices. He cared about the woman who bore Caroline's blood and the boy who needed a motherly voice at bedtime. But in the lobby below, a tabloid reporter was bribing the night clerk for the room number Vanessa's photos cued for midnight release. Everything Grant loved was about to be dragged into the spotlight and shredded. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. If your entire world hinged on a single secret, would you go public to protect the truth or stay silent to shield the ones you love? Tell us what you would risk. 12 minutes after midnight, Vanessa Aldridge's article erupted across every finance feed in America. Widower CEO Shield Street Imposter Company funds at risk. Photos of Lena in ragged clothes plastered the screen beside Caroline's memorial portrait, the headline baiting every click. Grant Whitaker read it once, then closed the laptop with surgical calm. Fear could wait, truth could not. He slipped on the navy blazer he'd buried in the closet since Caroline's funeral, woke Noah with a whisper, and guided Lena downstairs to the hotel conference room he'd rented an hour earlier. Jasmine Pierce and 2 camera operators were already live streaming to the Capitol Ledger. Grant stepped in front of the lens. Good morning. My name is Grant Whitaker. The woman beside me is Lena Hartley, my late wife's twin sister, separated at birth by an illegal private adoption, erased from every record that should have protected her. He laid the DNA report on the podium, his hands steady. Our board has been briefed, our shareholders will be reimbursed for any market turbulence, and my family will no longer be anyone's leverage. He turned to Lena. Ready? She inhaled, eyes glistening. My name is Lena. I grew up believing I was disposable. Tonight I learned I was stolen. But I'm standing here because somebody cared enough to look closer. If you're watching and you feel invisible, I promise you still matter. Thousands watched the feed in real time. Among them, Dorothy Kinney, retired nurse, teared up in her Oklahoma kitchen. She called the station hotline, confirming the twin records Jasmine had uncovered. By dawn, Austin Morning News pushed a new banner, Orphanage Whistleblower Backs Lena Hartley, Illegal Adoption Scheme Exposed. At 10 a.m., Whitaker Renewables Board convened in a downtown high-rise. Vanessa arrived in triumph until she saw the shareholders' faces glued to their phones. The room smelled of burnt coffee and backlash. Grant entered last, passing a printed transcript of his live stream to every director. Motion 1, he said, accept Lena Hartley's identity and authorize a company donation to Safe Haven Shelter in her name. Unanimous ayes. Motion 2, remove Vanessa Aldridge for breach of fiduciary duty and personal data theft. Silence. Then the votes rolled in severance, revoked credentials, suspended legal counsel already waiting. Vanessa's heels clicked like gunshots as security escorted her out. She glared at Grant. You think this is over? No, he answered quietly. It's just beginning without you. The next weeks blurred. Jasmine's full series reached European outlets, and a Paris-based partner not only honored its merger with Whitaker Renewable, but pledged an annual scholarship for foster youth engineers. Lena spent mornings with Noah, afternoons in therapy, evenings reading Caroline's journals to piece together the sister she never met. Some days she sobbed over what was lost. Others she laughed at Caroline's teenage poetry, realizing their handwriting was identical. One rainy Saturday, Grant drove them 3 hours west to Willow Creek's abandoned grounds, now a crumbling shell of green-painted dorms. Under the leaking roof of the old playroom, Lena found faint crayon marks on the wall, L+C, drawn by tiny hands 3 decades ago. She pressed her palm to the initials and whispered, "We were here together, even when we weren't." Grant wrapped his arms around her. "Let's turn this place into something better." 6 months later, sunlight splashed across a freshly painted sign, Bishop Hartley Center for New Beginnings. Where mold once crawled, classrooms now shone with art supplies and beanbag chairs. Lena, wearing a sunflower yellow dress, welcomed the first class of children runaways, foster teens kids who knew the ache of namelessness. Noah stood proudly beside her badge, proclaiming junior volunteer. During the ribbon cutting, Grant spoke to reporters. Caroline's spirit pushed us to chase one impossible coincidence. It let us hear proof that stories don't end in grief if we keep writing. Lena stepped to the microphone. For years, I believed I didn't deserve a roof or a last name or love. But a stranger saw me and refused to unsee. If each of us rescues one forgotten soul, every city street could be a family tree. Applause echoed down the refurbished hallways. Cameras flashed. Far away, Vanessa watched the broadcast from a quiet federal courtroom. Charged with identity theft and corporate sabotage, she faced community service at the very shelter she'd mocked. Choices had consequences. So did redemption. That night, the Whitakers gathered on the center's rooftop garden. Grant, Lena, Noah, and Jasmine, who'd swapped her press badge for potting soil. They planted evening primrose, Caroline's favorite wildflower. As dusk folded into Texas twilight, the blossoms opened, glowing pale gold. Noah slipped his hand into Lena's. "Mom would like you," he said. Lena kissed his forehead. "Then she has great taste." Grant pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Not an engagement ring yet, but a silver necklace engraved, "You are found. Wear it whenever doubt creeps in," he said. Lena clasped it, tears sparkling. "I'm not running anymore. This is home." A gentle breeze carried the scent of primrose over the city. For the first time, Grant's heart felt full instead of broken. Caroline's picture hung in Lena's new office downstairs, no longer a shrine of sorrow, but a reminder that love multiplies even after death. They stood together watching the horizon blaze orange. Somewhere beyond, a child in foster care might stumble upon a face that felt familiar. Somewhere else, a grieving parent might find courage to look again. Stories looped and intertwined, each ending a beginning. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. Which moment in Grant, Lena, and Noah's journey moved you the most, and why do you believe every act of kindness can ripple into something bigger than we imagine? If this story inspired you, type 100 in the comments, tell us the country you're watching from, and share this video so more lost voices might be heard. Your words could be the start of someone else's new beginning.